Hey, church family, Pastor Terry for another daily encouragement today. It's Wednesday. Been studying today, reading and planning for this weekend service. And wanted to remind you that if you've downloaded our prayer guide for today, we'll be praying for medical personnel and first line staffers. We've been asking for people from the church to let us know that you work in this industry, and we have this great list now available on the hub. You can download this. Has a list of all the names, the hospital or area they work at, and even the division, the floor they work at. And so we encourage you to download that today and to pray over those names. I know I'll be spending some time here in just a moment doing that as well. Our reading for today comes out of Galatians 3. This is kind of an interesting chapter of Galatians because Paul starts off being pretty firm. You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? He's talking about the fact that the gospel he had preached to them, they were no longer following. They were following back again this idea of being righteous through following the law of Moses. And Paul really has nothing good to say about that other than you need to have faith in Jesus. He writes, "You are all sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus. For all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ." I don't know what kind of word picture that gives you to be clothed in Christ, but for me, it's just this beautiful picture of how God surrounds us. The outside of us changes our whole look once we follow with Him. Some of this might have been born out of this idea that Paul was very aware of from Isaiah chapter 61. If you remember in Jesus' ministry, he comes to the temple and one day, and he is to read a particular passage that had been prescribed, and he reads the beginning of Isaiah 61. "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted and to proclaim the freedom for the captives, the release from darkness for the prisoners, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." It is so. This would have been such a moment to listen to Jesus read these words in the temple or synagogue that day. But down in verse 10 of this chapter, it says this: "I delight greatly in the Lord, for my soul rejoices in my God. For he has clothed me with garments of salvation and arrayed me in a robe of righteousness." I wonder if Paul's mind was reflecting on this idea when he thought about Jesus fulfilling Isaiah 61 and seeing that through Christ, through faith in Christ, we join him in being clothed with our salvation. Now, clothing is the exterior of ourselves, right? We wear that on the outside. You know that if you've been watching any of these videos, I love to wear hoodies. That's the time of the year that I could wear a sweatshirt every day. But sometimes we've kind of clothed the outside of us. You'll know some people in your life that always look stern or mad or unhappy. But as a believer, we ought to have a different look. We also know some people that look happy all the time. They just seem to be jovial all the time. And that's closer to what we ought to look for as believers. But I believe really with all of my life that as followers of Christ, that the joy of our salvation should be our clothing. That someone should be able to watch you on a regular basis and understand that there is something uniquely different about you. So today I want to just challenge you. I want you to think about something. If someone were to look at you, what would be their assessment of your clothing? Would it be one of spirit of joy and happiness and peace? Or would it be the assessment of stress and anger and frustration and negativity? As followers of Christ, I really believe that God has called us to be people to influence the world for good. And sometimes we do have to be stern, and sometimes we do have to be righteous, but we are to be clothed in the joy of our salvation. So I want to encourage you today. Think about the people you influence, the people you get to speak to, the people you might get to see on a video chat today. How are you clothed? The joy of your salvation? Is it offering the peace that comes with that as well? Or have you been clothed with something a little different? Just some food for thought today as we continue in this difficult season of life, this challenging season of life. Maybe it's in this season that God wraps his arms of salvation around us, his clothing of salvation around us, and gives us a new outlook on life. God bless you. I hope that you are encouraged this day. Be positive. Clothe yourselves in the righteousness of God's love.